Oh, Saturday morning. Got my coffee. Let's talk about Kragnos. And of course, this is the Kragnos that was featured in the base drops. Oops, sorry. And of course, this is the Kragnos that was featured in the previews for the Ogre Mod Tribe. So let's have a look. But first, of course, thanks to my patrons, Panda, Sprawl, Ivan, Tom, Christian Lentz, and Zed Ramirez. And of course, Barbarian for all the art. Check out his Instagram below. And if you're gonna buy dice, you might as well buy dice from Baron of Dice. And if you're gonna do that, you might as well use code MTG at checkout. Green screen. We're not talking about Spearhead. Get out of here, Spearhead. We're talking about Kragnos. Okay, so just a few things to think about before we actually look in depth at this war scroll. From what I understand, some of these gods are likely to have different war scrolls for different factions. That's what Nagash was, from what I remember, right? It said in there in the book, it was like, if this, unit is part of a such and such army, then this is what the war scroll looks like. So I'm kind of thinking that might be the case with Kragnos. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, what we're looking at today. But we're going to pretend that this war scroll is what we would see in Warwick War Clans, and we'll talk about what we think about it, right? So first, let's also, just for the sake of argument, let's pull up the previous Kragnos war scroll, and we'll have a look at them side by side. Because, let's see, Kragnos, the end of empires. Kragnos, the end of empires. Okay, so one thing that people have been talking about quite a bit is that we went from a 2-up save in 3rd to a 4-up save in 4th. So, good. A 2-up save. So the thing with Kragnos previously with his save is that, like, if you're looking at him, you're like, well, nothing, like, mortal wounds are his downfall in 3rd edition. I made a video about this earlier, before, like, talking about if Kragnos is good. But the Kragnos in 3rd edition, essentially what he has is a really strong spell ignore. And then he has a 6-up ward. And then a 2-up save. But the problem with this is that he's like, oh, like, you won't kill him with anything that isn't mortal wounds, right? Like, because of course he can all-out defense, he can Mystic Shield, he can their Finest Hour, so he can be on a 2-up ignoring 3 rend, which is kind of absurd, right? Like, you're not gonna get him if you're hitting him with non-mortal wounds. And if you're hitting him with spells, there's a really good chance that he's just going to, like, ignore your spell. But then that makes him, okay, so if he's, like, invulnerable to these, to some forms of damage that are coming in, but then it makes him hyper weak to some forms of damage that are coming in. So specifically non-spell mortal wounds. If you can hit Kragnos with non-spell mortal wounds, he melts. I played a game against Kragnos. It was a Bone Splitter player running Kragnos, and I was playing Cruel Boys, and my Bolt Boys just melted him. 18 wounds with 2x6 Bolt Boys is not unreasonable to try to do, so I just picked Kragnos up off the table. So he has to be balanced around all of his qualities, and if he's impossible to kill with anything but non-shooting mortal wounds, well, how do you point cost that? So the fact that he went up to a 4-up save to me is a good thing. Maybe a 3-up save would have been more reasonable, but again, it's like, I don't know. He has other defensive properties, right? So a 4-up save, it's like, okay, like, that's fine. Still at 18 health. They changed his profile, so he doesn't, so right now he starts at move 10, but then it degrades over time, and that's not the case. He's just going to be move 10 the entire time. I think that this was a good change. I think that monster tables are silly. Right? They're silly. They are hard to keep track of, and again, we want to stop players from having to reference their materials during games. We want to be able to, like, play the game. So the way that they've done it now is fine with this battle damaged thing that they have, but I don't know. I could see even just removing that, but at the same time I get it, because if you have a unit, let's say you have a unit of 10 models and they've taken half damage, well, they're outputting half the damage now. And so monsters needed some way of, like, degrading over time as they took damage. So I don't know, I feel like maybe now in 4th it feels like it's undertuned, that they need to suffer a greater penalty So, like, for example, I could have seen something like, okay, well, when they're at when they're, quote, battle damage, they also lose their, like, half of their movement speed, right? So, like, they're going to slow down and they're going to punch less hard. That seems reasonable to me. But we'll see how it plays. Still at 18 health, and then this 10 bravery, of course, has been replaced with 15 control. But the mightiest makes rightiest table that we had before with Kragnos, he started off by counting as 30 on an objective, and so now he will count for less on an objective than he ever has. But 15 is still a lot, right? 15 is still a lot. I think it's fine. You know, I think that he'll still feel like when he stands on objectives, he just sort of takes them, and that's totally fine. 1 second. Okay, so let's look at his attacks. So we have the Dread Mace. So, 4th edition Kragnos, 6 attacks, 3s to hit, 2s to wound, 3 rend, and 4 damage. This is identical to the profile that we have now in 3rd edition. 4th edition Tuskbreaker, we have 3s attacks, 4s to hit, 2s to wound, 2 rend, and D3 damage. So this is 1 worse to hit. We went from a 3-up to hit on Tuskbreaker now in 4th edition to a 4-up to hit. However, we have crit 2 hits on this ability now. This doesn't seem particularly strong to me because it's only 3 dice, right? So it's like you're going to throw 3 dice, and if one of them is a 6, which, you know, the probability isn't really on your side here, right? You're not going to probably get a ton of these, you know, but if you get them, you're nice, right? Like, you know, maybe one is nice, 2 is great, and then 3 is, you know, Yahtzee kind of deal. So it's not an incredibly powerful ability, or not an incredibly powerful ability on Tuskbreaker. And then we have Hooves and Rack and Ruin. Hooves of Rack and Ruin. So this is 3s to hit, 2s to wound, 1 rend, 2 damage, and this is exactly what it is in the profile now in 3rd edition. However, it doesn't degrade. Okay, passive battle damaged effect. While this unit has 10 or more damage points, the attack characteristic of Dread Mace is 4, and this unit has a control characteristic of 10. Cool. So battle damaged, the Dread Mace goes down, and the Dread Mace really is his really powerful damage output ability, right? This is his 4 damage with 6 attacks. You're right. You're looking at 24 damage. And with all an attack, right, he's on 2s and 2s with 3 rend. Like, this is his profile that's gonna really slap, is the Dread Mace. So the fact that battle damage reduces it is probably right. It feels like it's gonna be a significant decrease in his damage if the Dread Mace goes down attacks. Reaction: opponent declares a spell ability. So this is the change of his sort of the shield inviolate, right? Effect: if this unit was picked to be the target of a spell, roll a die. On a 3-up, ignore the effects of that spell on this unit. This unit can use this ability more than once per phase, but only once per spell ability. So does this mean that if it's a unlimited spell that he can only use it the first time? I have a feeling that's not the intention. We'll have to see kind of like what all the rules are. I've seen people talk about this, whether or not this means that he can survive, or whether or not he can shake off and spell ignore every unlimited spell. I have a feeling he can, right? But only once per spell ability. I don't know. Then why would that clause be included? Only once per spell ability. I don't know. So 3-up spell ignore. I think that most of the time this is going to be the case, where it's just going to be a 3-up spell ignore. I'm not sure how often in games he's going to be targeted by the same spell ability, you know, so I don't know. So 3-up spell ignore. What does he have now? He has the same thing pretty much, doesn't he? Well, it's not really that. It's like, so he rolls 3d6, and then if your roll is greater than the roll of the casting value of the spell, then he ignores the effect. So I feel like it used to be better. It would be like almost guaranteed, right? Because the average roll from 3d6 is 10, and the average roll from 2d6 is 7. And you don't need to beat the casting roll, you need to beat the casting value of the spell. So it means with 3d6, you could ignore Blizzard if you score 13, right? And that's not like impossible, but the rest of spells that are at like 5, 6, 7, 8, right? They're probably being ignored. So a 3-up spell ignore, again, it just seems a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, and it seems fine. Like a 3-up spell ignore is strong, you know? 2 out of 3 spells he's going to ignore. And now he has a 5-up ward. That's something that we could have probably talked about with the save, but he actually has a 5-up ward now, which means he's going to be ignoring spells, or at least the damage of spells a little bit better without having to necessarily ignore the spell. So that's fine. It also seems like the mortal wounds from spells has been tuned down, right? I've only ever seen D3, you know, so a 5-up ward with a spell ignore, a 3-up, and then a 5-up ward. Like, he's still going to be pretty difficult to kill with spells. Passive, Avatar of Destruction. Effect, if this unit would be automatically destroyed, it is not automatically destroyed. Instead, allocate 6 damage points to it. Ward rolls cannot be made for those damage points. Okay, this is something that we have sort of before and is a good change because it's you don't want to auto remove a model from the table, but you also don't want to have it so that all those really powerful auto remove abilities are useless. The way that it is now is that he just suffers D6 mortal wounds, so I think a flat 6 is better. It's like, well, we're not taking your model off the table, right? But we are going to do 1/3 of its life points in damage. So just an auto 6. It's like, oh, normally I just remove models from the table, but I did 1 mortal wound this time. It's like, yeah, that's lame. So just 6 damage seems to be a little bit more consistent and fine. Once per turn, army any charge phase. Rampaging Destruction. So this is something that he has now, right? If this unit charges this phase, if this unit charged this phase, pick one of the following. So he has to charge, right? After he's charged, roll a die for each enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit. On a 2-up, inflict an amount of mortal damage equal to that unit's, or to that unit equal to the roll. So it's on a charge. Oh no, sorry. On a 2-up, inflict a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. So it's a D6. So effectively on a D6, it's on a 2-up, it's D6 mortal damage. And I really like how they've done this. I like how it's not on a 2-up you do a D6. I like this little change. It's like you roll a D3 and on a 2-up deal that many. It's nice. You're just reducing the dice rolls. Little things like this I think make a difference. But still, it's like D6 mortal damage to every unit within 1 inch on a 2-up. That's good. That's good, right? That's good. And that's what it is now, right? In 3rd edition, on a 2-up, it's D6 mortal wounds. Cool. Pick an enemy monster in combat with this unit and roll 2d6. On a 7, this ability has no effect. Otherwise, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the unit equal to the results of the dice used for the 2d6 multiplied together. For example, a 2d6 roll of 2 and a 6 would inflict 12 mortal wounds, or mortal damage, 2 times 6. This is what it is now. So Kragnos is going to be able to pop off and blow up monsters. So if the average die roll is a 7, right, then I think it's a 1 in 6 chance that this does nothing, right? There's a 1 in 6 chance that you roll a 7 on 2d6. So there's a 5 out of 6 chance, so it's effectively a 2-up. You can think of it that way, right? There's a 1 in 6 chance of failure, but there's a 5 out of 6 chance of success, so this is functionally the same mathematically as on a 2-up, so it's quite reliable. And then let's say that your average roll isn't a 6 or isn't a 7, it's a 6. So then you either have 3 and 3, you have 3 and 3, let's say, so that's 9 mortal wounds on a monster. So the probability that Kragnos is going to charge into a monster, and of course this is one monster, you can't do this to every monster within a certain range, right? The probability that Kragnos is going to be able to destroy that monster is actually quite high, right? There's a 1 in 6 chance that Kragnos doesn't do any damage, but then there's a 5 out of 6 chance, and then I'd say that out of that 5 out of 6 chance, like if you're rolling an 8, right, it's like you're getting a 2 and a 6, right? Or you're getting like a 4 and a 4. But 2 and a 6 is 12 damage, and that's enough mortal wounds to kill a lot of monsters. So the probability that Kragnos one-shots a monster is actually quite reasonable and high. I don't know what the math is off the top of my head, right? Because I am not a math magician. So, but the probability again that you just blow up a monster is quite significant. And then he has another passive, the End of Empires. Effect, add 1 to the number of dice rolled when making charge rolls for friendly destruction units while they are wholly within 12 inches of this unit to a maximum of 3. So lots of 3d6 charges that we've seen so far in the spoilers. So, yeah, 3d6 charge. This is what it is now. Let's see. Where is it here? Yes. Nope. Rampaging Destruction. Nope. What's it called again? The End of Empires. Ah, here it is. Yeah. But and here in the 3rd edition rule, it says you have to be within 18, but it doesn't have that because I think they removed that from the game. I think you can just attempt to charge, period. It doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't. You have to change the rule that you have to be within 12 or to be within 18. You can make charge rolls, whatever. They just remove that rule, which is a good rule, right? Because rolling double 6s with a +1 to charge, it's like, oh no, but you can't though because you're not within 12. It's like, well, that's lame. So good, just a little bit of cleanup of the rules. And I mean, like, solid. What doesn't he have anymore? He doesn't have Bellow of Rage. And again, just another little caveat, this could be different in the Auric War Clans book, but I doubt that it's significantly different. It might be tuned a little bit different. We shall see. But it doesn't have, he doesn't have Bellow of Rage, which is fine. Bellow of Rage was kind of a weird ability that hurt you sometimes when you played him. So he's also still a War Master and unique. So, I mean, I don't know. So if I had this exact profile, if I had this exact unit, and this was in the Auric War Clans, before I think about points, because points really is an opportunity cost. When we're talking about points, what we're talking about is like, well, what could you take instead for the same number of points? And then is the alternative to this better than this? Points is a question of opportunity cost. Points, in my view, is not a question of whether or not a model is like strong or good. Points is a question of if it's strong or good relative to things that are similarly costed. If we were just looking at Kragnos and trying to decide if this unit was good, I would think yes. I would think yes, right? And then if we start thinking about what his role is, I feel like the role of Kragnos, and I feel like this is true in 3rd edition now, the role of Kragnos is to go stand on an objective, somewhere annoying, right in your opponent's face, potentially, to be 15 points on an objective, and to be immovable, to be an 18 brick with a good save, not so much anymore, but just to stand there and be impossible to remove. He's still, so he has a 5-up ward, right? He's on a 4-up save with a 5-up ward, and he is going to help ship in any other units that you want. So I'm thinking things like, you know, Gore Gruntas. It also works really well with like Brutes and with Ardboys with slower units because they're going to get a chance to get a 3d6 charge off. And, you know, if you're a 4-inch moving unit and you charge 12 on a 3d6, your movement abilities just went through the roof. This is very different from like a Gore Grunta with Mighty Destroyers, who's going to move 9, and then charge. His charge rolls are going to be probably, you know, like low because he's going to be 3, 4, 5 inches away from his target. But Ardboys moving up 4, and then 3d6 charging, right? You're enabling their movement speed significantly more. Right? So that's kind of his deal. It's like he's going to march up with the army, he's going to stand on an objective or in a really annoying location, and then with his 3-up spell ignore and his 5-up board, and his, you know, his save is not great anymore with his mediocre save. I feel like his save is probably too low. I feel like it's too low. He's got this giant dread mace or this giant shield, right? I mean, does he even have an ability? Avatar of Destruction? Yeah, the shield. He's got this crazy powerful shield. And it's not, and he's on a 4-up save. I don't know. Doesn't seem. I mean, I don't know. Like, tell me in the comments what you think, or come join the Discord and tell me what you think. But the fact that he has a spell ignore, you know, a 3-up spell ignore, and he's got a 5-up ward, Is the 3-up save like too defensive? I think the 2-up save is too defensive. Maybe they're trying to point him more, like maybe they're trying to lower his points. I don't like models that are super high in point cost, like 700 points. It's just too much. So with a 4-up save, like would you, like right now, if we were just looking at all things, if we were just comparing these two things side by side, if we said that this War Scroll for Kragnos was a 3rd edition War Scroll, what would we point him at? So he's the battle damaged is he's better now, right? This battle damaged is stronger than in 3rd. The spell ability is worse than in 3rd, probably by a lot, right? Because I feel like before with Kragnos that you just never cast spells on him because it didn't matter. You weren't going to be able to get him unless it was Blizzard. But without that, it's like you just didn't cast spells on him. Now I feel like it's better, right? Like I feel like the 3-up is worse, so this is slightly worse. The Avatar of Destruction is slightly worse in 4th, right? He's taking 6 and not d6. The damage is pretty much the same, right? The damage output is pretty much the same. Rampaging Destruction is pretty much the same. And the End of Vampires is pretty much the same. So it's like, and he's got a 5-up ward. So the 5-up ward is significantly better. A 5-up ward is way better than a 6-up ward. His spell ignore is a little bit worse. His save is a little bit worse, but the ward is quite a bit better. So, and he counts for way less on objectives, but still for a lot on objectives. So, I don't know. I feel like he's probably a touch worse in 4th. Maybe? Like, I don't know. I guess me sitting here deliberating means that they're comparable, right? But I'm kind of hoping that it comes down in points. But we'll see. Or you shouldn't even say that it comes... Well, because if everything in 4th is getting point increases, that's kind of what people have been saying. You know, that you're going to see less on the table than before, which I think is unfortunate. I feel like right now I'm able to have like my big wild list is a great example. It's like I have 2 flankers, I have 2 hammers, I have 2 anvils, and then I have a bunch of fun heroes. And I feel like it's perfect. And if I had to just cut things out of my big wild list, well, you get to remove units. I'm like, well, I don't know what I would want to remove. I wouldn't really want to remove anything. But I'd probably point cost him. To be honest, if points are going up, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the same. If he was in that 700 range. He just outputs so much damage. He just outputs so much damage. Let's just do a quick calculation. Let's just do a quick calculation. Okay, one model. We'll just do Dread Mace. How about that? So 4, let's say with all out attack. 3s to hit, 2s to wound. No, sorry, 2s to hit, 2s to wound. 3 rend, 4 damage. And this is just with the base or whatever. Where's my... So against a 4-up save, it's like 16 damage. Just from the Dread Mace. Against a 4-up save. Even against a 2-up save, it's 2 damage. So like he'll wipe out a unit of Annihilators with shields. Just with the Dread Mace. I mean, it's significant. You see the thing with the Ren too is that you see in the... It's probably too small for you to see, but... In the profile thing over here, it sort of says it changes to 16.7 at 4-up and then stays that way because, again, it's just lots and lots of rend, which is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, that's Kragnos. You'll have to let me know what you think. Would you run this on the table? Do you think it's going to be different in Auric War Clans when we finally get to see our stuff? I don't know how I feel about... I don't want to see our stuff. It makes me nervous. Like, it's so... Like, I don't know. This drip of spoilers. I don't know how I feel about it. Anyway, I'm trying to get 10 patrons. So, if you're still listening to me go on about this, you should consider some to be a patron. Get a role in the Discord, and I'll help you out with the lists. Tabletop Simulator. Go check it out. Like, subscribe. Wow.